we will have now our colleague from the European Commission, Zoltan, who will give us an overview of the 2019 Societal Challenge 6 calls. And so, Zoltan, I would like to ask you to join. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nina. It was very kind of you for the introduction, also for Katarzyna. It is my turn to welcome you at this brokerage event and info day on behalf of the European Commission, Directorate General Research and Innovation. My name is Zoltan Krasznai. I'm policy officer in the unit called Open and Inclusive Societies. We are the lead unit dealing with Societal Challenge 6. Inclusive, innovative, and reflective societies. And I'm here with my excellent colleagues. I would like to briefly present the Commission team here to guide you through the 2019 call for proposals. Laura Hettar from our International Cooperation Directorate, Margot Genacht from our Research Executive Agency. She's co-coordinator and the main experts of all the technical details. And my colleague sitting somewhere with you, Halina Valasek, who will give a very important and interesting presentation on what is coming in the future, because I have to recall that this is the penultimate exercise of Horizon 2020. This is the 6th year of presenting upcoming calls. There will be a last one for 2020, which is still under updating. But then all eyes are already on Horizon Europe. So that's why I think it is very interesting to see how the current call for proposals are trying to bridge the gap between the current framework program and the next one. And before starting my presentation, I would like to also warmly thank Katarzyna, Mikolaj, and the colleagues for the organization, also Nina and Net for Society. I would like to recall the importance of the national contact points for generally in Horizon 2020, but especially for such a complex field as we have in Societal Challenge 6. They did an excellent work, and not always in the easiest conditions. So working conditions of NCPs are not the same in all the countries. I would like to recall that because there are main discrepancies from this point of view, which also affect the chances of applicants in Horizon 2020. This is something to be constantly improved in the future. Now, my presentation, it will be boring. It is something which many of you know, if not by heart, from an experience of several years. It is published already, the text of the work program. It became open for applicants this week, on the 6th of November. So now you can start to create your consortia, your application. And the deadline will be, you will hear several times today, 14th of March for practically all the proposals that you can table. I will present the collaborative research call for proposals. I will not go into one part of our work program, which is the other actions. It is complex. It is not necessarily for collaborative research. There are sometimes already identified beneficiaries, so we will not spend too much time on this. Of course, we are NCPs and we are available to advise you on those actions. I will have 24 topics, so it will be a rush through. I will give a couple of highlights about the different topics, their type, the budget available, some elements of the specific challenges and the scope in which the European Commission is weighting the proposals and the expected impacts. And for more details, I will recommend to go to the official text. It's not even a recommendation. I say it is it's a sort of an obligation if you would like to table a good proposal. I might be sometimes lost in between the screen and the figures and the numbers. I apologize for this in advance. Let me start with recalling the three-pillar system of Horizon 2020. It will be very interesting to see you in the presentation of my colleague Halina, the new structure proposed for Horizon Europe. Building on the current structure, you know our place in the inclusive, innovative and reflective societies. In the third pillar, we are the smallest of all societal challenges, but it does not mean that it would be a societal challenge with less importance from a societal point of view. And if we are recalling the subscription rate, then we can say that we are the most important. Some reminding ideas about what we are doing together in Societal Challenge 6. It has a very strong focus on social sciences and humanities, as you know it very well. But, of course, it goes to many, many fields which are mentioned in the legal base about employment, combating poverty, prevent the development of various forms of divisions, conflict, and political and social exclusion. Also to work about gender and intergenerational inequalities, discriminations, radicalization, and cultural issues with a special focus on cultural heritage. About the budget, in the first work program, we covered 2 years with a budget of 310 million euro. In the second one, we also had roughly the same amount, 330 million euro, and the last work program is covering 3 years. That's why you see a higher amount, more than €500 million, and we say that the overall amount is still pending on the final budget for 2020. And of course, there are always some insecurities about the contributions of associated countries. The structure is the same. You are used to that. There are calls for proposals with related topics. And there are the other actions part that I've already mentioned, different procurements, prizes, presidency conferences, or support to the work of national contact points. There are different types of actions that we published. The most numerous topics are for research and innovation actions, but there are also innovation actions more targeted to activities on the field. Coordination and support actions with different objectives, but mainly trying to bring together stakeholders and either to map a field and prepare for future research and innovation, or to collect already available but desperate results in order to channel it towards European or national or regional local policy making. And we also have Eranet co-funds, time to time, not this time, not in 2019. The number of calls decreased, contrary to the budget, which increased on the other hand. We started with 5 calls, then we had 4 calls in the second work program, and now we have the 3 calls that you know already from 2018. And there is a budget breakdown, and please disregard 2020, or it gives an idea about the size of the budget available, but it is not a contractual part of the work program. We have 3 calls like last year. It's a continuation. So the first one is migration, about migration and refugees. I would like to add immediately about the different flows, the triggers, the narratives, the challenges of integration, lessons learned from the past, and special challenges for cities, just to mention a couple of main elements of the work program. The second one is, it has a very strange title. I would like to say that it was maybe not very well written at that time. Human and social dynamics of the fourth industrial revolution. I would like to say that it is social, economy, enterprises, entrepreneurship, and cultural heritage. Those are the main elements. And how you frame it in fourth industrial revolution, it is a very much debated issue of the fourth industrial revolution. There was a lot of intellectual interest. There is still a lot of intellectual interest, but I would like to ask you not to be focused very much on the fourth industrial revolution. Please focus on the topics, on the different elements that we identified with experts as main fields of transformations happening, and where the help of social sciences, humanities, and all related sciences and disciplines are really important to understand and tackle societal challenges. The third one is about governance for the future, issues about trust and legitimacy, the work of our democracies, legal frameworks, historical and cultural evolution of governance, and multi-level governance. The whole structure of the work program was elaborated with the help of stakeholders. It is never a lonely work of unknown commission officials sitting somewhere in Brussels, coming up with ideas. No, we do not know what are the societal challenges. We might have some private ideas, but we are trying to synthesize the work of a very large scope of stakeholders. As with all the other work programs, we started with a report of an expert advisory group covering all the disciplines working on Societal Challenge 6, and they proposed us big tickets, the 3 big tickets that became the 3 cores of the work program. We had many inputs from stakeholders through different consultations, events. We also had sort of a strategic stock taking with the different departments of the European Commission and other institutions working with us. We looked into what was covered in the past, what needs to be covered compared to the legal basis, and of course we were always in constant dialogue with the evolving policy priorities of the European institutions, especially the European Commission. And we also commanded different gap analyses, foresight studies, policy reviews, reports, and position papers. And let me at this point recall our policy reviews. I will give a couple of hints about where to look for further information about Societal Challenge 6 and the different topics, the different websites, because time to time we come out with policy papers trying to summarize international research on different fields, whether it is about trust. The upcoming one will be on democracy, another one on citizenship. We just published this year, as this was the European, or it is still the European Year of Cultural Heritage, we published the policy review on cultural heritage related research. Those are reviews, policy papers written by external and high-level scholars, experts, and they can guide a little bit your thinking about the different fields, what was covered, what is under discussion, and what might be interesting opportunities, research and innovation gaps that were identified. This is about the different recommendations of the expert advisory group. I would like to skip this in details because we are running a little bit late compared to the original program. I would like to turn directly towards the first goal, migration. What we are proposing for consortia and what we are asking for is to produce recommendations for the global and European governance of migration, as well as innovative solutions for integration of migrants and refugees into European host societies. In many topics, the questioning and the topics are related to the United Nations Development Goals and the Agenda 2030. There are many elements, and I'm sure that Laura will develop them further, that gives an opportunity for international cooperation, or when it's even a requirement, an extra requirement. We would like to see also improved responses for the international protection of refugees, the management of forced displacement, and the promotion of more fact-based and accurate discourses on migration. So, evidence-based in many topics, the starting point, saying that we do not have enough comparative international data to work towards better policy instruments. If we turn towards the topics, we will have 4 in that part. The first one, open for 2019, has the title Understanding Migration Mobility Patterns, Elaborating Mid- and Long-Term Migration Scenarios. It is a research and innovation action with an indicative budget of 9 million euro, and the Commission expects proposals up to 3 million. You know, there is always the magic formulation that the Commission expects up to this, but of course you can send whatever you wish. With regard to the budget, it is always important to look into the budgetary part of the work program, because there you can see what is the available budget. So, of course, you can come with other proposals, but it is practical to be in the range of what is foreseen by the European Commission. Something that I would like to mention is that many of you remember, there are faces that I and colleagues and scholars we met several times, and we had discussions about the subscription rate, the number of proposals per topics, which was really tremendous at the beginning, creating situations where you told us, look, it is like a lottery. I have 14.5, I'm not selected, how can it happen? So we had a lot of discussion with member states, with NCPs, and then it was decided that we will reduce the number of topics because we cannot really increase the budget. We don't have the margin for this. So let's decrease the number of topics and let's have 2 or 3 winning proposals if they are above the threshold, if they really are excellent proposals. And we have the feeling, statistics show that it works. Maybe because some of you, some of the scholarly and entrepreneurial community had the feeling that it is not worth anymore to apply, and also because this new structure, subscription rate decreased and success rate increased. I don't want to give you false hope saying that it will be very easy from now on to be in a winning position after your proposals. But our feeling is, and our expectation is, that it is getting better. We are more used to you are more used to the system, and the expectations are becoming more realistic now. So turning back to the topic, it is about the new geographies and temporalities of migration, the changing nature and the different triggering effects of the migration flows. It would like to look into forced movements of migrants and refugees, also voluntary movements, linked to better livelihood opportunities, what we call economic migration. Population estimates, data on gross international migration flows, gender dimension is very important, and we are asking for a special focus on minors, unaccompanied or with their families. And with regard to the impact, we are expecting to know more about the drivers, attitudes, and behaviors in qualitative and quantitative terms, scenarios and projections about the future, and cooperation with national statistical institutes and Eurostat, at least an improvement of data gathering. So this is about the big picture, what is happening, what might happen, also in short, mid, and longer term in the future. Topic number 3 is social and economic effects of migration in Europe and integration policies. It is less about scenarios, but more on realistic policies. Looking into the long-term effects of migration on economic growth and productivity, employment levels and wages, also on entrepreneurship, the fiscal and the welfare impacts of migration, social impact of segregation, integration policies and their efficiency, effectiveness, historical experiences, because migration happens, and most probably will happen in the future. So it is not a one-shot, entirely new experience in Europe or in other parts of the world. And we've highlighted also in the topic the interdisciplinary nature of the research and innovation required, and we named a couple of disciplines that might be interested to work together: sociology, economics, history, anthropology, cultural studies, psychology, and of course all other disciplines that can enter in a useful way a consortia. On the impact side, we look for improved understanding of socioeconomic effects of migration in European countries, and assessment, and I would like to say also advice to integration policies. The third topic to be mentioned under the migration call is number 6, addressing the challenge of migrant integration through ICT-enabled solutions. It's an innovation action, so less related to the research part. Of course, research is always part of innovation. You cannot have a firewall between research and innovation, but more engaged on the field with actors, and also with exploring the different ideas in pilot projects in reality. The available budget, it's 8 million euro, and it is expected to have proposals with a budget proposal between 3 and 4 million euros, most probably giving, if proposals are over the threshold, 2 projects to run. I just have the feeling that this is not the latest version of my presentation. Never mind. It is very important that it has a strong focus on ICT-enabled solutions. And it would like to have the integration and inclusion of migrants and the improvement of their lives. It would give new or improved technical solutions for accessing relevant public services. It would help to have an idea about cultural features, gender differences, gender difficulties. It would help to monitor skills and capacities of migrants, and to adapt policies according to those skills and capacities. It would help to collect also best practices for member states. And it should help us to scale up existing successful experiences. As an impact, we are expecting to see improved deployment of public services for the inclusion of migrants and improved communication between migrants and public administrations. The next topic on migration is number 7, international protection of refugees in a comparative perspective. Also a research and innovation action with 9 million euro of overall budget, with the expected size, once again, 3 million euro. It is looking into the emerging international protection system, which is related to the United Nations efforts also to bring together countries and to harmonize the international protection system. It would like to look into the European Union's arrangements with refugees' origin and transit countries, the comparative assessment of existing legal responses to protection needs, the possibilities to protect vulnerable groups from abuse and exploitation, violence and discrimination. And there is a very special and important international cooperation aspect in this topic. It recommends particularly to work with Canada, Brazil, South Africa and Jordan, and to have partners from those countries, and the inclusion of relevant international organizations. On the impact side, we expect to see an evaluation of the process, discourses and outcomes of the planned compact on refugees. This is the UN compact, which was announced in 2016, which is already quite developed and might be voted at UN level and the end of, before the end of this year. Better strategies for implementing global refugee policies and process of the European Union's common asylum system that should be strengthened by the contributions of the selected projects. Let's turn to the second call, where we have, I think, 9 topics to see together today. What is this second call about? Socioeconomic and cultural transformations. I would stop here. Socioeconomic and cultural transformations. Address challenges linked to the socioeconomic and cultural effects in Europe in the context of globalization and digitization. Provide new evidence and alternative policy options in order to mitigate or support these transformations with a view to enhancing the diversity of cultures and social bonds and reinforce the social, cultural and economic benefits of all the transformations that we call today the fourth industrial revolution. Foster equitable and sustainable prosperity and culture in the broad sense through objective scientific evaluations, social, cultural and technological innovation, co-creation and bottom-up solutions. Contribute to the objectives and the European Year of Cultural Heritage and to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. About the cultural heritage part, we had a very successful conference in March where we gathered major stakeholders from Europe, also from European institutions, governments, and we will have another event on the 20th of March 2019. If some of you are interested in this field, it might be an opportunity to come once again together and look into what are really the results of this European Year of Cultural Heritage. Let's see the topics. Number 2 is transformative impact of disruptive technologies in public services. It contributes to the focus area, digital transformations. It has a budget of 8 million euro, and the expected size But that's why it's a little bit annoying that it is not the version that I wanted to have there, because there are some really factual errors. So it is expected to have proposals in between 3 and 4 millions. So 2 winning proposals might or will be possible. The topic is to look into the potential benefits and risks of disruptive technologies in public administration. What we call today disruptive technologies. It is blockchain, big data, Internet of Things, virtual and augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and so on. And really the big questions: what can public administrations do? How can they improve services provided for citizens by the use of these new disruptive technologies? And really, Commission is looking towards impacts that would help to guide and to create pathways for introducing these new disruptive technologies for providing public services. I talked about disruptive technologies. It was a disruptive technology of presentation, but now we are back to more familiar waters. So topic number 3, innovative solutions for inclusive and sustainable urban environment. It is a research and innovation action with an unusual size of budget. We have 6 million here, so probably we can select 2 excellent proposals. The objectives are to identify the main drivers of inequalities in different urban and peri-urban contexts, to support urban strategies, policies, and planning of public authorities, assess scale drivers of socioeconomic inequalities, effectiveness of local policies and practices, of course to formulate policy recommendations, and to promote of all aspects of social inclusion. And we would like to have a better link between research, innovation, and policy for new participatory and alternative growth models in urban environments, and to advance the European Union's urban agenda and related sustainable development goals. Topic 4, innovative approaches to urban and regional development through cultural tourism. Once again, a research and innovation action with 9 million euro earmarked for excellent projects. And I would like to mention immediately that there is an innovation action part foreseen for 2020 about the same topic, and the text will be only slightly revised for next year. The objective of this topic is to address the knowledge gap on the phenomenon of cultural heritage tourism, to understand its contribution towards cultural Europeanization, the feeling of belonging, and economic and social development in Europe, to assess how cultural tourism has affected the development of European regions and urban areas, assess the effectiveness and sustainability of multi-level strategies, policies, trends, and practices affecting cultural tourism. And we foresee to give special attention to, or there is a possibility to give special attention to minority cultures and also regions with different minorities, and to currently less attractive urban areas from the point of view of cultural tourism. On the impact side, we are expecting improved policies and practices for cultural tourism, sort of a strategic guidance at European level for different levels of public authorities and also for private stakeholders, the creation of innovative tools and methods, and better understanding the impact of cultural tourism. Topic number 7 is the impact of technological transformation on children and youth. We are really happy to have this opportunity to announce this topic. It has a twofold approach. First one is a classical research and innovation action with the usual size of the budget. And we are also launching a call for proposal for a coordination and support action. For the research and innovation proposals, they should develop a solid and independent multidisciplinary and longitudinal knowledge about the impact of technological transformation on children and youth. I don't have time to recall all the statistics which say that out of 3 users of the internet, 1 is under 18, and it is a rapidly transforming field. There are different effects. There were a lot of studies on television and internet, but about the new tools, new applications, new devices, we really lack knowledge, comparative and longitudinal knowledge. So we are proposing to assess the online behavior of children and young people, develop and test robust methodologies for measuring and explaining long-term impacts, to develop evidence-based models identifying and analyzing at-risk groups, involve children, young people in the project, and also parents and teachers, so stakeholder involvement. And for the coordination and support action, we request to establish a pan-European platform to coordinate research activities, also to map available research and the gap that should be filled by future research, and to propose solutions for building online resilience. On the impact side, we would like to see better information to relevant stakeholders and practitioners, both from the research and innovation and the coordination and support action, a contribution to better regulation, or, for example, having a labeling system of applications, tools, and so on that are reliable and safe for children, to formulate recommendations for policymakers, and, very important, improve data, methods, and knowledge base. Topic number 8 is the societal value of culture and the impact of cultural policies in Europe. Once again, research and innovation action, and it is a proposal to do international and comparative research on a recent trend on culture, which trying to evaluate the societal impact beyond direct fiscal or economic contribution of culture on cultural and creative industries. So that's why we are asking for the development of new perspectives and improved methodologies for capturing the wider societal value of culture. It would be part of those activities to map the various forms of cultural engagement, assess the role of cultural participation as a source of well-being, explain how cultural values are constructed in the age of social media, internet, and television across different socioeconomic groups. And there is another objective I would like to say in the same topic. So there is one about the evaluation of societal value of culture, and the other one is to study the visions that underlie cultural policies, assess the goals, strategies, and effectiveness of cultural policies and institutions. There can be different approaches, but one can also imagine a sociological, anthropological, political assessment of the different actors, institutions, what is behind the conception of cultural policies in European countries, in associated countries, those who are eligible. Are they new, or it is a transformation of old ideas? How we get to the results, what we call different cultural policies in member states and at European level. So on the impact side, we would like to see new methodologies for capturing the societal value of culture, and tools for measuring, understanding, and enhancing the impact of cultural policies. Of course, policy recommendations are always part of a work of a research and innovation action. Number 11 is collaborative approaches to cultural heritage for social cohesion. You can see the little abbreviation DT, digital transformations. It is usually a sign of the importance of technical aspects, informatics in the topic. The expectation is to have up to 3 running projects. The size would be between 3 and 4 million euro, research and innovation action, but with a very strong social focus. So I mentioned the technological importance of the technology part, but with a very strong focus on social application of new technologies. So it would like to improve access to insufficiently integrated socio-cultural groups through participative and collaborative approaches. By the use of social media platforms, art, co-designed activities. It should cover tangible and intangible heritage, digital tagging of objects, and digital humanities. It would be part on how to better co-author societal and place-based memories, how different groups can use the digital world for co-authoring societal and place-based memories of different groups and communities. We are asking for collaborative tools and applications to help cultural, tourist sectors and heritage institutions. I'm jumping to the next one, number 13, using big data approaches in research and innovation policy making. It is a small research and innovation action with potentially one winning excellent project. It is really to help research and innovation policy making. It is obvious that this policy making needs solid and timely data. And we also face the situation that official data is not always giving the whole dynamics of research and innovation systems. But different types of research and expert opinions show that there are alternative sources of data related to digitalization, what we call big data. They are widely available, they could give a fuller coverage, a better granularity, and they can give a more timely answer to the questions asked about the research and innovation ecosystems. And that's why the idea would be to do research and innovation on how to exploit better big data for research and innovation policy making, about how to have data about research and innovation investments, public-private cooperation, technology diffusion, and so on and so forth. Next topic is number 16. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit speeding up because I said that this is the dry part of the day. I think it is important to have an overview of what is proposed, but at the end, you have to go. We have to go more into details in bilateral discussions. Number 16. Is an update compared to previously published versions of the work program. It is a coordination and support action with a foreseen budget of 1.5 million euro to create a social platform on the impact assessment and the quality of interventions in European historical environment and cultural heritage sites. It is really related to all the discussions what we had about European cultural heritage this year. When we talk about a social platform, it is gathering, it is networking, it is not an IT tool. So the platform, it is really people sitting together, working together, involvement of stakeholders. It can have an IT aspect that can facilitate exchange, but please do not consider that this is an IT development. Usually when you develop a beautiful tool to get stakeholders, if you do not create the interest, if you do not create the personal links, it will not work. You can forget it after 2 years, after the end of the project. So the idea here is really stakeholder involvement. What is the problem that should be tackled is that there are no harmonized standards for quality interventions in cultural heritage environments. And one part of the problem is that there is a mandatory impact assessment. It is part of different European directives on the environment impact assessment, but we do not know how far they are harmonized when they are applied. There were studies in this field before the 2004 enlargement. So in the western part, or at that moment, the European Union, but in the last 15 years, we don't really have comparative analysis of what is happening in this field. And that's why we consider that it is important to bring together stakeholders and to work on analyzing what is going on and what could be done in the future. So coordination of stakeholders, development of toolkits, an innovative research agenda, and better harmonization of impact assessment in intervention quality standards are among the expected impacts. A beautiful topic on societal challenges and the arts. It is also part of the update of the work program, a research and innovation action with 9 million euro foreseen for 3 excellent projects. It is about relation between current societal challenges and the arts, how arts can engage with society, with major societal issues. How can they think about the problems? How can they bring in alternative or unconventional solutions? How can they reach out to people? How can they mobilize? And it is also looking into artistic entrepreneurship with links to cultural and creative industries, and how to create better connectivity between multiple stakeholders. So the impact would be the use of artistic perspectives in innovative approaches to societal challenges in areas like inequalities, migration, refugees, climate, social justice, and so on and so forth. The list is, of course, not limitative. And test practices based on social inclusion and co-creation. So it is explicitly part of doing pilot activities or on-the-field activities in this topic. The third one, and the last part of my presentation, is the call on governance for the future with 11 topics for 2019. Let's look into the guiding principles and ideas of this call. We would like to have a better evidence base and to help create sound policy and technological options to facilitate adaptation of governance structures if and as needed. It should, or proposal should, address foundations of governance and democracy in key constitutional and institutional areas like trust, differentiation between member states with regard to European cooperation, social rights and citizenship, also addressing societal challenges such as populism, polarization and radicalization, open innovation, security and defense policy, digital democracy and delivery of public goods are part of the fields covered by the different topics. And international cooperation, especially in relation to topics on global governance and violent extremism. The first topic is trust in governance, research and innovation, with 9 million euro of earmarked budget. We are proposing to investigate changes of trust in the European Union, the euro, political parties and financial systems, to study relationship between trust and distrust, trust and inequalities, trust and legitimacy, trust and the quality of our democracies. Assess correlations between trust, social inclusion and belonging, identify thresholds of decreasing levels of trust, participatory practices beyond electoral participation, role of civil society, and perform experimental research when it is considered relevant by the consortia. We would like to see enhanced knowledge base on trust, including on factors determining changes in trust, develop criteria indicators for detecting decreasing trust, restore and improve trust in governance, and enhance quality of democracy. Well, very ambitious. But without ambition, we will not have results. Topic number 2 in the governance call, past, present, and future of differentiation in European governance. As I mentioned, it is really about the very important part of European integration is that there are different applications of integration. There is differentiation in time, in scale, in participation. The euro application of euro is the most evident example of differentiation between application of European policies. But here it is not the only one. I just use this as an example. So it is a coordination and support action with €1.5 million. We are trying to increase the size of coordination and support actions. In the past, usually they were about €1 million, but it was very difficult for the consortia to finish their work, or they try to do it very rapidly, so that's why we are trying to increase available budget. And once again, it would be mostly networking and stakeholders working together to ascertain whether and how much differentiation is necessary, conducive, sustainable, and acceptable for the European Union. You might recall that this topic was a research and innovation action this year, in 2018. So the coordination and support actions should also coordinate the work, the different research and innovation action projects who start to work already this year or end of this year. So the objective would be to establish a research network, to build scenarios for the future, take stock of existing research action, and link research and policy on differentiation. Topic number 4 is enhancing social rights and EU citizenship. Once again, a research and innovation action. We would like to ask consortia to look into the relationship between social policy instruments and outcomes in social inclusion and fairness. It is very much related to the European social pillar, an assessment of the merits and pitfalls of European social policy harmonization, the consideration of sustainable development goals, and the UN Agenda 2030 is, I think, obvious for this topic. Research consortia can work on the conceptualization of social citizenship as part of European citizenship, the links between social rights and economic growth, inequality trends and social well-being, and there is a very important historical and comparative dimension in this topic. We would like to see among the impacts recommendations on the exercise of social rights as part of EU citizenship, contribute to the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights, and improved indicators on social exclusion and poverty. Let's see the next one, governance number 5, also digital transformation topic, new forms of delivering public goods and inclusive public services. research and innovation action with available budget to cover 2 winning projects with a size between 3 and 4 million euro. The objective would be to critically assess and support transformation based on an open collaboration and innovation platform supported by ICT, government as a platform. It is also a tentative to look to the future. How can public service provision become adapted to the digital transformations? What could be the open environment and ecosystem of the future for government as a service, and help to regroup resources under common infrastructures at the European level, enable the participation of all relevant communities, and we are asking for identifying gaps in accessibility solutions, to establish related best practices, and to promote training, awareness raising, and capacity building. It would be also support to the Web Accessibility Directive of the European Union. Governance topic 10 is drivers and context of violent extremism in the broader MENA region and the Balkans. It is part of all the efforts of the European Union to help member states to deal with violent extremism or radicalization. I would like to recall here a recent policy review that we published from the author, French author Gilles Capel, which is an overview of existing research, identifying also research gaps. This is one of the results of the ongoing discussions what we had and what the European Commission had on the basis of this policy review. The research and innovation action with 9 million euro is looking into to analyze interplay between religion, politics, and identity regionally and by countries. Consider radical interpretations and appropriations of religion to justify violent extremism, foreign fighters, role of diasporas and community leaders, and identify and analyze preventive measures, for example, how to strengthen moderate voices, foster education and inclusion as tools for reconciliation, promoting online media literacy and countering radical propaganda. And very important that proposals should include at least one participant from a third country relevant to the specific challenge and scope, so MENA region and the Balkans, but I'm sure that Laura will mention this once again. And we would like to have an improved knowledge base on violent extremism in the broader MENA region and the Balkans, and ensure mutual learning between the European Union and third countries in light of common challenges. It is a contribution to the Security Union focus area of Horizon 2020. Topic number 13 is digitization, digital single market, and European culture, new challenges for creativity, intellectual property rights, and copyright. It is not an innovation action. I'm sure that this is a research and innovation action. It's my fault, sorry for the error on the slide, with 9 million euro foreseen for 3 excellent proposals. We hesitated whether to put it in under governance because it is very much related to the deployment of the digital single market and the impacts on the cultural field, cultural institutions, cultural actors, or to keep it in the transformation part, more in with the other topics on culture, cultural heritage, creative industries. But I think the place is not really important. What is really important is the topic, which would like to look into the consequences of digitization and implementation of the digital single market on cultural diversity, on access to culture, and on the creation of cultural value. It is very important to have a much better understanding of the impact of the digital single market on the cultural field and realm, because the general research, the general policy discussion is really about big actors, the very big actors and portability of cultural rights, but what is going on a local level, on a regional level, in cities, in cultural institutions, it is not really known. There are really a lot of ongoing discussions about coping strategies for intellectual property rights, on copyright, on European level and national level, on what would be the good level of harmonization, for example. What are the impact of digitization and access to European cultural goods and services? And what is the importance of digital single market for-profit, non-profit, and mixed cultural and creative activities in Europe? So I think it's really an opportunity for social sciences, humanities, to look into an issue which is monopolized mostly by very high-level discussions about big companies and how they share different markets. So we would like to see solutions and business models and policy recommendations coming out from research and innovation, fairer accessibility of digitized cultural goods and services, and advise on appropriate levels of harmonization of copyright and IPR, intellectual property right legislation and systems. And at the end of my presentation, I will mention a couple of new coordination and support actions. Please keep in mind that it might give several new topics, but the budget involved is really small. So it is considered to be very important by stakeholders, by policymakers, to time gather people, stakeholders, and to look into what has been achieved, what is still to be done, what could be the best recommendations for future research policy or for the different policy fields concerned by research and innovation under Societal Challenge 6. And those coordination and support actions should really create the bridge between Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe. So there is one on reversing inequalities, which was a very important call in the second work program of Societal Challenge 6. There is a need for evidence-based to design and implement policy instruments that can reverse the trend of increasing inequalities. Existing research need to be collected and consolidated. We should bring together the relevant research communities, also with policymakers, consolidate comparative data sets, and when necessary, generate new data. So it is also like the social platform that I mentioned previously, with the expected impacts to synthesize the state of the art, facilitate improved data collection, to provide policy recommendations on social cohesion, and to create networks of stakeholders, policymakers, and experts on inequalities. 17 is also the same type of coordination and support action with same size of the budget, but on democracy, democratic crisis, with the question mark, resolving socioeconomic and political challenges to reinvigorate democracies. The bridge aspect of this coordination support action is really important because, as Halina will explain to you in her presentation, in the Horizon Europe proposal, there is a cluster centered on social sciences and humanities foreseen with a cluster on democracy. And number 18 is also a CSA on innovation in government, building an agile and citizen-centered public sector. It would like to promote experimentation and innovation in the public sector based on past work by the Observatory of Public Innovation managed by the OECD, to develop a theory and practice of public sector innovation for the 21st century. I mean, start developing or to consolidate or bring together people to develop a theory, we do not really expect that coordination and support action will really transform this field fundamentally. Peer learning and exchange of best practices between governments would be in the scope of this coordination and support action. And a very interesting new topic, a European social catalyst fund to scale up high-performing social innovations in the provision of social services. It is called the coordination and support action, but it is it's an interesting formulation. It proposes to create a sort of a financial instrument in the social innovation sector for inclusiveness and to help the integration of marginalized and vulnerable populations. So really to use the Catalyst Fund as a sort of seed money provider or incubator for social innovations in the field of provision of social services. So what we are expecting is the creation of a consortium or good proposals for creating a consortium of venture philanthropists, foundations, social impact investors, government agencies, and service providers in the social sector. They should bring and engage money in the Catalyst Fund. So the European contribution would be a fixed part, not more than 25% of the budget of the European Social Catalyst Fund. And the consortia should prepare a list of activities for support via this Catalyst Fund. So I would like to present this as an excellent pilot initiative that could be enhanced and developed future if there is tangible success after the first exercise. Really, thank you very much for your attention. It is very, very kind of you. In my presentation that might be shared by the organizers, you will find a lot of links and online resources, or where to go, where to find more information. And I would like to also recommend to visit our Social Sciences and Humanities website and to look for the different online publications. I mentioned that there are several recent publications which are really relevant before finalizing your proposals, on trust, for example, on financial issues, on migration, on terrorism and radicalization. And I also mentioned on cultural heritage, something that we recently published. We will come out also with policy reviews on democracy and citizenship very soon, but I cannot promise that they will be available before you have to finalize your proposals. So thank you very much. Good luck, and turn to your national contact points. They are always great help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zoltan, for presenting the dry part, as you said, as interesting or as lively as possible. So now what we would like to ask you is, do you have any questions? Are there any questions in the room? Do you want to address a question to Zoltan? Anybody? Yes?
Gareth McNaughton from RMIT. Quick question on trust. You mentioned things like financial institutions, government, political parties. Would you consider media as an eligible part of that type of institutional part and trust?
Absolutely. What I mentioned is really not an exhaustive list of the aspects. It is a selection from the most important things that we mentioned under specific challenges and the scope, but the most important is the coherence of the proposals. So we always say that look into your strength and your consortium and what you are willing to do, what you want to do, and adapt it. So if it covers the scope, it is in the scope and responds to the specific challenges and provides the impact, then there is a lot of flexibility. And it is always, we are trying to be less and less prescriptive in the topics. If you compare, for example, with the previous framework program, or even the beginning of Horizon 2020, we had much longer text with a lot of details, and we had the feedback that you considered it as too strict for the conditions and the criteria. So we are trying to give indications towards the objectives. But of course you have to be aware that, and I'm sure that many of you worked as independent experts for the evaluations. So the proposals are evaluated against the published text. So when you cover something else or do not cover something, never try to hide it. Explain. There should be a good research and innovation logic behind it. And I think it's much better to make it explicit than to have a situation where the expert says that, okay, it's a beautiful proposal, but why don't they cover Z and Y and X and only from A to, I don't know, L among the different criteria.
Thank you. Did this answer your question, I guess? We have another question here.
Yes, thank you. Zoltan, very appreciated your presentation. It was for me, of course, not all new, but it freshens up quite good. All the calls you presented are consortia calls. What I was wondering, of course, you mentioned a couple of times multidisciplinarity as a more or less precondition to apply. But the discussion is a bit also, what's the position of the widening participation policy of the European Commission in this? Is this in this calls as strong as it was in the past, or is it a requirement to involve a spread consortium throughout Europe? What's the position in this?
Thank you very much, Peter, for this excellent question. Of course, widening is a very important aspect throughout Horizon 2020. It is not changing. The accessibility or eligibility criteria are the same, and it can be and it must be consulted before tabling a proposal. There are the basic conditions. Usually 3 participants from at least 3 countries, but there are also specific elements mentioned either in the topic description, like for example when I mentioned the MENA region or Balkan countries not part of the European Union as being an obligation to be in the consortium, or when it is recommended to work with countries outside of the European Union. Canada was mentioned, Brazil was mentioned, Jordan was mentioned. So there are some specific elements, and of course variety is always welcome. Sometimes it is foreseen to really have a very good geographical coverage. When it is explicitly mentioned, then really evaluators will look into that. And in case of a tie on the basis of excellence, of impact, and management part of the proposal, it can be that makes the difference between 2 very good proposals or 2 excellent proposals, the geographic coverage. And of course we are always trying to help and to promote participation from the different parts of the European Union, because there are discrepancies, we are all aware. We had a midterm review of Horizon 2020. This is an issue, and with the help of the formulation of the topics, we are really trying to promote cooperation between researchers, innovators, small and medium-sized enterprises, entrepreneurs of the different parts of eligible countries, European Union, associated countries, or when it's possible, third countries.
I'm sorry, we will be able to take one more question, and here was somebody in the front first, but we invite you to talk to our Commission colleague during the day, because they will be here until this afternoon, so please feel free later in the break to talk to them.
My name is Gustav Nemes. I'm from the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, and I have a bit similar question. I mean, this was about multidisciplinarity, and I would like to ask about transdisciplinarity. So in many of these calls, involving stakeholders is an obligation, more or less. And in my experience of European projects, the most difficult thing is actually with this involvement of stakeholders. So I think we need to actually have them as project partners and give them budget within these consortium, because otherwise it's not easy to keep their interest during the whole period of the research and really have good input from them. So what's the position on that?
Well, it is not. Thank you very much for your question. What I will give as an answer is my private opinion, because there are no official answer beyond what is in the conditions and eligibility criteria. Of course, what we say is that whether we call inter, multi, transdisciplinarity, we can discuss it maybe over a coffee. What we say, it should be a reasoned one. So none of the consortia should bring in different disciplines just the sake of having different disciplines there. So it should be really the research and innovation logic that brings together the different disciplines. And having some pre-established contacts and some experience in working together might help to quick start the projects. That's true, that we saw that in many cases. When it is a brand new context, it might need some time, but it is also in the preparatory phase of the proposal. Now, giving budget or not giving, in the research and innovation actions, mostly it is necessary. If you really want to do interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary research, then of course, partners should have the necessary resources for doing so. In coordination and support actions, it might be different. We saw in several cases that there is a core group doing the social platform, the networking part, and they bring in their networks and they increase and develop their network through different events. And then the events are the focal points of bringing in new disciplines, new people, new fields, policies, and for the discussion. So sometimes you have a core group of 5 to 6 partners, or 4 to 6 partners in a coordination and support action, but they come with an initial network of 50 institutions and organizations supporting the idea because they think that it's important. It will improve their networking and cooperation and co-creation, and they engage themselves to participate. And then there will be a couple of events, and there might be IT tools, and there might be different types of exchanges that can really help to create the network and sort of an avalanche effect of a coordination and support.